Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. It's your boy D Black coming back with you with another SmackDown review. Alright, this SmackDown was sad. It was not good at all. I mean, nothing here made it anything exciting about wanting to watch WrestleMania or paying the price for WrestleMania, to make people want to go or watch. I mean, this was really, really a boring SmackDown. Whew. But we're gonna go get through it, the best way we can. And remember, everything on this channel is raw and uncut. So, okay, we get with Cody Rhodes coming out. Oh, well, at the beginning, you have Cody Rhodes talking to Nick Aldis, and then Jelly Roll rolls up, and Nick Aldis is telling Cody and Jelly Roll, that they have strict orders, to control the environment as far as they're concerned, with Pat McAfee and not, putting their hands on Pat McAfee when he, shows up and stuff like that. And Nick is, saying that, it's beyond his control, it's coming up from from higher authority and stuff, and then Cody and Jelly, I guess, kind of agree with it. And then Jelly, is telling Cody that, this match isn't about anything else other than him, Cody and Randy Orton, you know, and they're fighting for something that's that's bigger. He's telling Cody that what he's fighting for is something bigger, than Cody is and everything. It's not like it was just for his like he did for his story and everything. This is something bigger. And then he tells Cody, to chew on it, more or less, kind of think about it and stuff like that, because it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be something, you know, and I guess this match with Cody and Randy, it should be a good one. I mean, we'll see as the night goes by. And then we have Rhea Ripley coming out. She's talking about Jade and everything, and she did, say that she's gonna get kind of even with Jade and stuff like that. More basically the same thing, she's been saying, for the last few weeks, when they had their little promos together, so I mean, this is another match that may be halfway decent and stuff, but we'll see. And then all of a sudden, Io Sky comes out, and she's telling Rio, that Rio's gonna beat Jade, and then she tells Rhea that she wants to wrestle Jade tonight and everything, and so Nick Aldis comes out, and he makes it happen. He says, if Rio wants, to face Jade tonight, then they'll do it and stuff like that, but you kind of risk an injury and stuff like that, and hopefully nothing happened. So it was a pretty decent match when it happened. So we'll get to that when the match happens. It was the main event for tonight. Then we get the match with Bayley and Alexa Bliss. The match was okay. It went a little bit back and forth and everything. Thank goodness there was no interference or no brawling going on and stuff. We get a roll up by Alexa Bliss on Bayley, and Alexa wins the match. Then we get Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes. Trick is actually, kind of like somewhat sympathizing with Camilo Hayes for losing, the U.S. title. But then Camilo Hayes, I guess congratulates Trick Williams, for making it into WrestleMania and stuff like that. And then Matt Cardona comes out, and Matt Cardona starts talking crap to Trick Williams, and all of a sudden, Matt Cardona challenges, Trick Williams to a match, and then he said he was going to go talk to Nick Aldis, to see if they can get that match going, and that match happens later on in the night. Then we get a little Drew McIntyre, film promo and stuff, and he's talking about Jacob Fatu and what's going to happen with Jacob and stuff like that. And then we get Jacob Fatu talking to Kathy Kelly. And basically, he's saying the same thing about Drew McIntyre. So it's on and on and on and on, same thing. And then Solo Sikoa comes out, into Jacob Fatu's interview, and then Solo's talking crap to Jacob, and I showed that they have unfinished business because Jacob said, there's unfinished business between him and Solo, and they can take it back. And then Solo ended up putting Tama Tonga involved into the match and stuff, and told Tama Tonga, to handle Jacob and stuff. So that match would come on later on in the segment. And then we get, a little something with, Royce Keys and stuff. It was a little promo, and there was, talking about his background and stuff, and how he entered wrestling and stuff like that. Told a little something about himself and everything, and that wrestling, basically kind of like saved his life and everything. And wrestling, is the best thing that happened to him, saying that, he won't be defined from his past, but for where he goes, towards his future as far as, wrestling and how things, will shape, as he goes forward and stuff. So we'll be looking for stuff with Royce Keys and stuff, and hopefully that, he'll do good in the WWE. And then we get the match with Berto from Las Gaza, facing Roy Keys. And the match was okay. I mean, it really wasn't all that great. Roy Keys, he's a big guy. So he ends up, taking Berto out, and, he gave him a spine buster, and he wins the match. Then we got Pat McAfee and Nick Aldis, and Pat McAfee is asking Nick Aldis, did he, tell Jelly Roll and Cody about putting their hands on him and everything, you know. So I mean, this, this is crazy. And then Jelly Roll comes out and he asks Pat, you know, McAfee, did he tell Randy, you know, to attack him and stuff, and then Pat McAfee, tells him no, and Jelly Roll, kind of shrugs him up, you know, and everything. So they're in each other's face, and then Nick Aldis comes out, and he stops, what was about to happen and stuff. And then you get a backstage thing with Kathy Kelly, congratulating Royce Keys, on his win, in his hometown and stuff like that. And then Soldier Code comes up and he tells Royce, that he had a good match and he looked good, and if anything, if there's anything that he wants, if he wants to come talk, get some advice, or whatever the case may be, he said that, he can always come to him because his doors are always open. So I guess Solo is going to try to recruit Royce Keys, but I don't think that's going to happen and stuff. And then we get something with Pat McAfee, you know, um, in his promo. And so Pat, is really saying it's crazy, how the people, boo him and everything and stuff when he comes out, and they cheer CM Punk, and then Pat McAfee saying that he's not the villain, he's more or less the hero. But then I'm sitting here thinking, like, wait a minute, so why is he coming out talking about CM Punk when he kicked Cody Rhodes between the legs and Brandy dusted off Cody Rhodes? So I'm not really understanding this this promo and everything, because it's heavily on CM Punk, and CM Punk got his hands full with Roman Reigns. And then he starts talking about, what CM Punk said about as far as the tickets and stuff, for WrestleMania are concerned, as far as, the prices coming down. And then, Pat saying that, CM Punk is wearing merchandise and stuff like that and everything, and then selling merchandise. And then, what's he do when the check, comes? Does he give it to the wrestling fans and stuff like that? Or the wrestlers that who need some money or whatever the case may be? Or does it go, to him in his account, So I'm like, okay. And then he says about the tickets and everything that the 25 percent off and everything, and not to buy tickets to day one WrestleMania. So what was that all about? Why would you even say that? Why would he even put that in his in his mouth? I mean, that's crazy. How you gonna tell people not to buy, tickets for day one, but buy the tickets for day two and stuff of WrestleMania? So I don't know, and then now that the tickets, are not doing well and everything, they had to put tickets on sale again, 25% off, and we're talking about a week from now, WrestleMania is going to be happening. Ooh, it's crazy. But I don't know who to blame on this, either Triple H or TKO. I have no idea, but we'll see what happens, man. We're going to see what happens. Ooh, and then we got Cody Rhodes coming out, and he's telling Pat McAfee that he doesn't belong here. Then they get to talking with each other, and stuff like that. And I was done when um, Pat McAfee started talking about CM Punk and the things like that. It just took away from a lot of stuff that was happening. As far as Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes and stuff like that. You know, and then as they're talking, um, it goes to Randy Orton and Jelly Roll laying on the ground. So I'm assuming that Randy Orton has attacked Jelly Roll. And then as Cody goes out, he leaves the ring to go to help Jelly Roll. And then Pat McAfee is kind of following him and stuff. And then Cody turns around, to give his attention to Pat McAfee. And then all of a sudden, Drew McIntyre comes out. Not Drew McIntyre, I'm sorry. Randy Orton comes out and he attacks Cody Rhodes. And now they're fighting. They're fighting. And then they're fighting. And then they're brawling. And then they're brawling again and stuff like that. You know, and they beat Cody. I mean, it's crazy because I mean, I, oh Lord, all these brawls and it's still not leading up to anything. I mean, it's how I'm seeing this. I'm thinking that Cody is how would I say Cody is Cody is probably going to lose this title. Cody's gonna lose this belt and stuff. I think no, we don't even have another. Yeah, I think we have another Raw or SmackDown before WrestleMania, and then we'll see from there. Because later on I will put a prediction out and everything. But then Cody gets beat up and everything by Drew McIntyre. I'm not sorry, not Drew McIntyre, by Randy Orton and stuff, and Cody is laid in the ring. And then we got the Miz, complaining about the match that he had last week with Kit Wilson, and they almost, won the, tag titles and stuff like that, and then he, blames, Danhausen, for the referee doing what the referee did and everything as he was counting one, two, three, his arm got stuck. And then when they got pinned, then the referees were working and stuff like that. So we get a match that's going to be coming up with Danhausen, and Kit Wilson and stuff. Then we get the match with Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga. This match was, I mean, it was okay. It was supposed to be what it was. It was a little brutal and stuff like that. So eventually, and it was actually a kind of a clean win and everything. And Jacob, beats um Tamatanga. He wins. Jacob Fatu wins the match, and then as Jacob Fatu is about ready to talk and everything, then Drew McIntyre comes. He claymores him. Then he beats. Then he goes to beat doggone Jacob Fatu up. I mean, he destroyed Jacob Fatu. He put handcuffs on him and everything. He just beat him up, manhandled him, beat him up. So this match that they have coming up for WrestleMania could be a really pretty good one. I expect to see some color in that. Hopefully we do and stuff, but we'll see. Then we get a little backstage thing with our truth, trying to promote, the ESPN app and stuff like that. And Dan Housen comes out, and then Damian Priest comes out. Him and our truth are, talking about how our truth called Dan Dan Housen Oscar, and then our truth is saying that he didn't and everything. So it was a little funny skit that they had going on and everything. And then we got Sami Zayn, coming out to the ring. He gets booed, saying that Cody, and more or less Cody and Randy's been telling him that he needs to change, the way that he is, and how he's approaching things like that. But he's coming out like he's whining all the time, and that's what Sammy does a lot. He's been doing a heck of a lot of whining, even though he won a doggone U.S. title and stuff, which I think he should have never won that title and stuff. And then Trick Williams, comes out, with Little Yachty, and Trick Williams was saying, tells Sami Zayn that the people are here and they're tired of hearing him, talk, as far as him crying and whining, all the time, and he said that his breath smells funky like a donkey and stuff, you know. And then he's like, Sammy can't never get the job done, but apparently he did because he did win the U.S. title, against Carmelo Hayes and stuff like that. So ultimately, what's going on is that we know that Sami Zayn and Trick Williams are going to be, fighting for the U.S. title and stuff like that, um, and stuff. So more or less, Trick is more or less saying that it's not the fact that he's been in the ring, 20 years and everything like that, you know. And he basically said that's why they call him the Anointed One, and that the fact that he is going to beat Sami Zayn, at WrestleMania and take the U.S. title, from him, then Sami is saying, telling Trick that he disagrees with everything that he says and stuff like that, So they're going on and on, just talking, basically more or less is the same thing, And he's saying that he's going to crush, um, Trick Williams, and I guess he's gonna put him in this place and everything. And Sam said you can call him, gingerbread, ginger man, or ginger ale, or whatever the case may be. But the fact is that at the end of WrestleMania, when it's all over with, he's walking out, as U.S. Champ and stuff. And then we get the match with Trick Williams against Matt Cardona. The match is okay. I had to say Matt Cardona, man. I mean, he's doing pretty good. I mean, he took Trick to the, to his limit and everything. And Trick took Matt to his limit. So it was a pretty good match for the two guys and stuff. And we had Sami Zayn, out at the ringside, at the announcer desk watching the match and everything. And then him and Trick get into a little pushing, shoving thing and stuff like that. And then Lil Yachty, you know, oh man, Lil Yachty catches a haluna kick by Sami Zayn and stuff, and then Trick Williams, had to come and try to rescue him and stuff like that. But in the end, Matt Cardona catches a trick shot, and Trick Williams wins that match and stuff. Oh man, so that's I mean, I don't know, man. I don't understand what's going on with these matches, but hopefully things kick up. And then we get the Danhausen and Kit Wilson match. This match was I mean it was just thrown together. Two jobbers doing what they do. Um, Danhausen wins the match. Where this match came from, why this match happened, I mean, it was just a match that was just thrown together. I guess because of all the time that Dan Housen saying that Kit Wilson is cursed, and then Kit Wilson telling Dan Housen that he's toxic and stuff like that. So I guess that's basically about why this match got put together. But anyway, we get Jade Cargill. She was looking for Meechin, you know, and everything because B Fab had just got beaten up early by Rhea. And then Jay finds Meechin and she asks, who did this, and then Meechin tells her, that it was Rhea Ripley that did it to him and stuff. And then we get the little backstage segment, Io and Rhea are talking, and Io is telling Rhea, the match that she has with Jade that she wants to do it on her own. So she wants Rhea to stay in the back and everything. You know, um, she said that she didn't want no distractions or anything as the match is going. Then we get the match with Io Sky and Jade Cargill. The match was a pretty decent match. Io, she's one of the better female ring workers and stuff like that. Jade is getting a little bit better and stuff. I mean, she still has a lot of work to do and everything, but the fact that Io took it to the limit that she did, I think Rhea and Jade are gonna have a real good, hopefully, real good match and stuff. I'll be putting out a prediction for the first night of WrestleMania, then one for the second night of WrestleMania and stuff like that. But this match was okay and everything. Jade wins the match, pretty clean. She gets Io Sky, and Jaded and stuff. So, and then out came, I mean, it was good. I mean, there was no interference. Nobody came out. She won. You know, Rhea stayed back and everything. So that was pretty good. It was a pretty decent match compared to two and stuff. So, but anyway, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, leave a comment. Let me know how you're feeling and everything. Thank you for watching. God bless. Deuces, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.